Hey class, good afternoon and welcome back to Introductory Psychology. I just want to give you a heads up. Just a few hours ago I finished the Oklahoma City Marathon, my first ever marathon run. So I got a cool medal and got a cool shirt. You may not be able to tell, it says finisher on it, but I would normally be a lot more excited about it, but I'm actually really tired still. It's about 4 o'clock right now and I'm still pretty exhausted, but I thought about recording this video yesterday before I did the run, and but I actually wanted to share that with you. That I set out to do something at the very beginning of the year, and I was able to accomplish that. And I didn't finish as very fast, or I didn't win the race certainly, but I had a lot of fun, and the training was very hard, but also worthwhile. I learned a lot about myself, and kind of pushing my own limits, and just knowing that if I want to do something, I can do that. So I challenge any of you that if there's something out there that you want to do, it doesn't have to be running, or if there's something you've been thinking about doing, kind of pushing your own limits, I challenge you to do that. Whatever it is, whether it's maybe traveling somewhere you've always wanted to go, or learning an instrument or something, try it. Push your limits, and I think you'll be really surprised if you just constantly push yourself a little bit further. How well, what you can do. So anyways, that's it on that spiel. But anyways, so can't believe it. We're at week 16. Means we have just 2 weeks left in the course. I wanted to give you a friendly reminder that your last writing assignment, your scholarly article review is due tomorrow evening at 11:59 p.m. I've gotten a few of them so far. I imagine I'm going to get a lot more in the next day or so. Please get it in by Monday evening before it incurs a late penalty. I know this is an assignment. I think that, hopefully you're at the end of the semester, maybe you're ready to get to the summer, but, just get that last assignment in and get it off your plate and get that full credit. So, but anyways, once you get that done, I highly recommend that you turn to our last chapter. Can you believe it? One last chapter. One of my favorite subjects within the field of psychology, and that's social psychology. It's sort of this bridge where psych and sociology have sort of converge. I like to think of psych and soc as being complementary social sciences. One is the macro perspective, kind of sociology, looking at society as a whole, and psychology, is kind of looking more at the individual. But this is the chapter where the two sort of intersect. And if you've taken sociology, some of this might be familiar. And if it is, great, because that, some of this, there's a lot going on in this chapter. I mean, this is a whole course by itself. I took at OU. I'm not sure if OSU or OKC offers it, but some universities and institutions offer social psych as a course on its own. It's a very fascinating topic. So this topic, you're going to be looking at attitudes, kind of how factors and how they develop and how they're shaped. Attitudes are kind of how we feel and respond. So if you've ever taken like a survey, if any, maybe it's a customer service survey, or if anyone's called you about your political views or attitudes, then you might understand kind of, it's just how you feel about something and how that relates to behavior. Interesting. There's a really weird connection between attitude and behavior. We're going to look at kind of the dirty side of attitudes, and then get into some issues of prejudice and discrimination, stereotypes. At one point, stereotypical thinking is kind of a byproduct that as human beings, we are cognitive misers. So we like to simplify things, and stereotyping is just a way of simplified thinking. And it has some sort of evolutionary component to it. I mean, if you can stereotype, like if you're, hundreds of thousands of years ago and you're surveying the plains of Savannah and you're trying to see what's out there, and you have to discriminate or stereotype between what could eat you and what couldn't, there's benefit to that. But nowadays, when we base stereotypes on things like skin color, religion, other things that have no, that are irrelevant for the most part in terms of like what separates us, I think that's when stereotypical thinking is bad. It's really bad. Even good stereotypes you'll learn to read, or if you've already known that, if you've ever experienced, a positive stereotype, then it's kind of it's sort of limiting your accomplishments. But anyways, so we'll look at that. And then we're going to switch gears, make it a little more positive, look at the issue of attraction, interpersonal attraction, romantic, platonic, and look at love. I mean, we're going to look at the varying degrees of love. It's not just like, oh, I love you. And there's a lot of ways of love feels and the way it's expressed. It's very different. And you'll read about that. You look at social perception and why first impressions matter, why they matter, because of the attributions we make about each other. And you're going to read about the fundamental attribution, how we tend to explain other people's behavior in terms of what we think are their disposition, and we like to explain our own behavior in terms of the circumstance. Like if Jim is late, it's because Jim is a jerk and he's an inconsiderate person. But if I'm late, it's just because my tire was flat, or I didn't get enough sleep last night, and so I was I didn't get up as early. But anyways, you'll read about that. I think it's a super fascinating phenomenon. Then you're going to get into some really, really fascinating stuff, looking at obedience to authority figures and conformity and the role, the power of the role. So you're going to be reading about 3 of the most infamous experiments in the history of psychology. And I like that we saved those till the end because they're so interesting. It's the Stanford Prison Experiment, where Stanley Milgram recruited participants some to pretend to be that they're prisoners, and others to pretend they were guards. It was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it ended up lasting only a few days because they both parties took their roles on too literally. The prisoners were being abused by the guards, and Milgram at one point was the ward. I mean, it's just super fascinating. You'll read about that. You'll read about Milgram's study on obedience, kind of pushing people to harm another person. They didn't really harm. They thought they were delivering a shock. It was kind of seeing how far would people go if an authority figure told you to keep going, and read about that. It's super, super fascinating. And then finally, the Solomon Asch's study of conformity, study about, asking people to look at one line and compare it to 3 other lines and say, okay, which one resembles, closest to the standard line. And if the idea was that if Asch could get other people in the research to intentionally give the wrong answer, he wanted to know, would you conform to the wrong answer intentionally or not? But anyway, so you're going to read about that. I don't want to give too much away, but it's really fascinating. Then finally, you're going to look at aggression. I mean, we're going to look at human beings. We're very aggressive people, unfortunately. Thankfully, a lot of the ways we aggress is different than ways it probably used to be. Probably in our ancestral history, and really not that long ago, we probably solved a lot of our issues with physical aggression. But now it's a little bit different, especially in first world countries and societies. We have more relational aggression and passive aggressiveness, and so you're going to read about that. And then finally, you're going to look at the ways in which people behave differently in groups versus individuals. Trust me, people behave entirely different in a group versus in a individual setting. Think about if you've ever been to a sports setting. How many people by themselves as individuals would walk around yelling, "Boo"? Probably not very many people, but when you get them in large stadiums, people cheer and people boo, they boo the other opposite team or whatever. It's really funny. But there's some really scary instances where people, when they get involved in crowds, they lose their identity and do crazier things than just boo. I mean, maybe get violent or otherwise. And you're going to read the last thing, you're going to read about altruism and read about what happens when people, that's when people help, but also we're going to look at what happens when people don't help, and you're going to get to read a little bit about Kitty Genovese, a really sad story of a lady who was murdered, and others saw it happening, but unfortunately did nothing. So hate to end it on that kind of a downer note, but that's kind of where chapter 14 ends. So that's a lot. It's kind of jamming a lot of social psych into one chapter. Again, if you're interested in the topic, take a course on it if you can, either at this institution or elsewhere, if you have the opportunity. I think it's a wonderful topic. But anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. I feel like I've talked a long time right now. A little out of it still from the run, but kind of still a little jacked up or a little pumped up. So anyways, so read chapter 14. If you've completed your paper. If you haven't, please make sure you complete your paper first. Prioritize that first. Read chapter 14. We will have a discussion post. It's already up. It's about it's on the topic of cognitive dissonance. I really want you to read that. And there's a situation I want you to be able to apply it to. So you'll need to be able to discuss the theory of cognitive dissonance and also be able to apply it situationally for your discussion post. And heads up, I will be posting our last exam next week. I'll post it probably next Saturday or Sunday, probably at the earliest. I want to give you a chance to complete the discussion post first, and then you can worry about the exam. But you'll have about a week to take the exam. So anyways. But the exam will only cover 2 chapters. It'll only cover 13 and 14. So actually, I'm going to plan on posting it on Saturday. And then I'll probably have to have it due that following Friday. So just heads up. But be aware it's only 2 chapters instead of 4. So I think it's a little bit easier. So I think that's about it for week 16. Really excited. It's been a really fun class. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really excited that we're reaching the end because I feel like it's been a good semester for all of us. But I think it's about that time. It's flying by, but it's about that time. So I hope you decide maybe to take another psychology course at some point or another. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that. All right. Have a good week. Take care. Bye.